By the time I realized I was alone in my own marriage, it was already too late. Some men don't leave. They replace you in full daylight. These betrayals don't happen in secret, and they hurt in ways you can't explain. This was the year he started coming home late. At first, he said it was work. Meetings that ran long, projects that needed finishing, deadlines that couldn't wait. And I believed him, because I wanted to believe him, because the alternative was too frightening to consider. Then he stopped explaining. He would walk in at 9, at 10, at 11, and offer no excuse, no apology, no acknowledgement that anything was different. And I learned not to ask, because asking led to arguments, and arguments led to accusations, and accusations led to a coldness that could last for days. He started drinking, not enough to fall, not enough to slur his words or stumble. Just enough to change, just enough that I could smell it on his breath, see it in the looseness of his movements, hear it in the slight edge to his voice. His voice became sharper, cutting through the air like a blade. His patience thinner, worn down to nothing. Everything I did seemed to irritate him, to provoke some response I couldn't predict or prevent. If food was not ready when he walked in, he complained. "What have you been doing all day?" If the house was too quiet, he complained. "It's like a funeral home in here." If the house was too noisy, if I had the television on, or music playing, anything to fill the oppressive silence, he complained. Can't a man have peace in his own home? Somehow, everything became my fault. The weather, the traffic, the state of the world. If something went wrong in his day, I would feel it when he came home, carried in on his shoulders like a weight he would then transfer to mine. I tried to talk. I tried to explain, to express, to communicate the growing distance between us, the way I felt like I was disappearing inside this house, inside this marriage. He said I talked too much. That I was always complaining. That I didn't know how good I had it. I tried to cry, thinking maybe if he saw my pain, he would understand, would soften, would remember that he had once cared. He said I was weak, manipulative, using tears to get my way. I tried to explain, calmly, rationally, choosing my words carefully like someone navigating a minefield. He said I liked excuses. That I never took responsibility. That everything was always someone else's fault. So I learned a new language. Silence. Silence is not something you choose once, like a decision you make and then it's done. It is something you choose every day, a little more, in 1,000 small moments. You choose it when you want to object but don't. When you want to defend yourself but can't. When you want to scream but instead you smile. Until one day you realize it has become your only way of surviving. Until one day you realize you have forgotten how to speak at all. When my mother called and asked how I was, her voice warm and concerned and so far away, I said, "Fine." And I made myself sound cheerful, light, unburdened. When my father asked if I was happy, his question more tentative, as if he already suspected the answer but didn't want to hear it, I said, "Of course." And I laughed, as if the question itself was absurd, as if happiness was so obvious it didn't need discussing. I had been raised to endure. This was what my mother had taught me, what her mother had taught her. That women endure. That marriage is hard work. That you don't give up just because things are difficult. That you make it work. No matter what. Making it work costs you. And I was enduring beautifully. If endurance could be measured, I would have won awards. I was a master at it, at swallowing pain, at pretending everything was fine, at holding myself together even as I felt myself coming apart. The day the doctor told us we should consider tests, sitting in his sterile office with its motivational posters and plastic plants. He did not hold my hand. We sat side by side in those uncomfortable chairs, and there was a gulf between us that felt wider than the room, wider than the city, wider than anything I could bridge. He sat there, looking at his watch, checking the time as if he had somewhere more important to be, as if this conversation about our future, about children, about the deepest desire of my heart, was just another appointment to get through. The tests began. Needles and ultrasounds and uncomfortable questions and waiting rooms that all looked the same. The waiting began. Days turning into weeks, turning into months. Waiting for results. Waiting for answers. Waiting for someone to tell us why this fundamental thing that was supposed to be natural refused to happen. The whispering began. At family gatherings, in the neighborhood, at the market. People who thought they were being subtle, who looked away when I caught them staring, who changed the subject when I entered the room. Hospital corridors have a special kind of loneliness, even when they are full of people. Everyone there is carrying their own private grief, their own unanswered prayers, and you walk past each other like ghosts, acknowledging nothing. When the first IVF failed, I cried in the bathroom so he wouldn't see me. I locked the door and sat on the cold tile floor and let the sobs come, my whole body shaking with the force of it, my hands pressed against my mouth to muffle the sound. When the second failed, he said, "Maybe this is just not your destiny." Not ours. Mine. As if he had no part in it. As if the failure was solely my body's, my fault, my burden to carry. By the third, I stopped crying. What was the point? Tears changed nothing. They didn't bring babies. They didn't soften him. They only made me feel weaker, more pathetic, more alone. That was around the time he started having affairs. Not carefully, not secretly. He didn't take pains to hide it, didn't cover his tracks, didn't make up elaborate lies. Just, carelessly, he would come home smelling of unfamiliar perfume. He would leave his phone face down on the table. He would smile at messages I couldn't see. Sometimes he didn't even deny it. When I finally worked up the courage to confront him, my voice shaking, my hands trembling, he just looked at me with something like pity. "What do you expect me to do?" he asked once, his tone almost reasonable, as if we were discussing something mundane like what to have for dinner. "Wait forever." The words hit me like a physical blow. I stood there in our kitchen, the place where I had cooked thousands of meals, where I had tried so hard to build something resembling a life, and I felt something inside me crack. I went to his mother, hoping for, what? Sympathy, support, some acknowledgement that what he was doing was wrong. She said, "A man has needs." Said it without even looking up from her knitting, as if this was simply a fact of life, something everyone knew and accepted. I went to my own mother, desperate now, needing someone to tell me I wasn't crazy, that I deserved better, that this wasn't how marriage was supposed to be. She said, "Marriage is not a bed of roses." Said it gently, with love, but the message was clear: endure. Suffer. Stay. So I stayed. I stayed because I did not know where else to go. My life had become so small, so contained within these walls, that I couldn't imagine an existence outside of them. I stayed because I had been taught that leaving is failure, that divorce is shame, that a good woman finds a way to make it work, no matter what. I stayed because I still believed something could be saved. Some small part of me still hoped that if I could just figure out the right way to be, the right things to say, the right way to move through the world, he would love me again. Or perhaps, for the first time, actually love me at all. By the time I first spoke about adoption, I was already tired in my bones. Not tired the way sleep fixes. Not the kind of exhaustion that comes from physical labor or a busy day. Tired the way years fix nothing. Tired in my soul. Tired of hoping. Tired of trying. Tired of being disappointed. I mentioned it carefully, one evening, as if I were asking permission to breathe. We were sitting in the living room, the television playing something neither of us was watching, and I had rehearsed the words in my head for days, trying to find the right tone, the right approach. He didn't answer me. Not yes. Not no. He just looked past me, through me, as if I hadn't spoken at all. He picked up his keys and walked out, leaving me sitting there with my half-formed hope dying in my throat. I tried again another week, choosing a different moment, a different approach. He said nothing, just stared at his phone, scrolling through whatever held his attention more than I did. I tried again another month, my voice smaller now, less certain. He said, "We'll see." Those meaningless words people use when they mean no but don't want to say it directly. But we never saw anything. The conversation never progressed. My tentative suggestions met only with silence or dismissal or that vague, "We'll see," that meant nothing and everything. Unknown to me, he had already made another plan. While I was navigating the grief of childlessness, the loneliness of our marriage, the slow erasure of myself, he was building a different future, one that did not include me. There was a woman, one of the many he had cycled through over the years. But this one was different. She had money, real money, the kind that showed in her clothes, her car, her lifestyle. And more importantly, she was spending it on him. New suits appeared in his closet, designer labels I knew we couldn't afford. Expensive dinners he mentioned casually, as if I wouldn't notice. Trips he never took me on. Weekend getaways and business conferences in cities I had never seen. And in his mind, he had already left my house. He was already gone, already building a new life, even as he still slept in our bed, ate at our table, pretended we were still married in any meaningful sense. He went to her family to ask for her hand, following all the proper procedures, playing the role of the honorable suitor. He did not tell me. He did not warn me. Why would he? In his mind, I was already irrelevant, already part of a past he was ready to discard. I found out much later, through whispers and sideways glances and the kind of gossip that travels faster than truth. Her parents were not fools. They asked questions, the kind of questions parents should ask when a man comes seeking their daughter's hand. They asked about his marriage. They asked about children. They asked about the life he had built, the responsibilities he was trying to leave behind. And when they heard the truth, that he had been married for years and had no child, they refused. They said they would not give their daughter to a man who would bring her into a house of sorrow. They said they would not let their child inherit another woman's pain. They saw what he had tried to hide, that he was a man who abandoned responsibilities, who blamed others for his failures, who would do to their daughter what he had done to me. He came home that day a smaller man. Quieter. The swagger gone, replaced by something that looked almost like shame. Defeat. Angrier too. That simmering rage that came from humiliation. From having his plans thwarted. From being forced to remain in a situation he had already mentally escaped. The house felt smaller when he was in it. Quieter, somehow. Like, even the walls had learned not to expect anything anymore. He did not apologize. He did not explain. He did not mention the woman, or the plans he had made, or the life he had almost stepped into without me. He simply resumed occupying space. Sleeping in the bed, sitting at the table, reading the newspaper like nothing had happened. Like our lives had not nearly been dismantled by his absence. I learned something then. Some people do not return because they miss you. They return because there is nowhere else left to go. We did not speak about love. We did not speak about us. We spoke only about practical things. Groceries, bills, appointments. And then, one evening, when the silence had become heavier than words, I said it. I want to talk about adoption. My voice barely above a whisper, expecting rejection, expecting anger, expecting nothing. He did not look at me at first. He kept his eyes on whatever was in front of him, as if the wall were more interesting than my face. For what? He asked. I swallowed. Because the treatments have failed. Because I still want to be a mother. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, do what you want. Not yes. Not no. Not even a question. Just permission. I realized in that moment that I was no longer asking my husband for a future. I was informing a stranger of a decision. And yet, I took it. Because sometimes hope does not come wrapped in love. Sometimes it comes wrapped in exhaustion. He didn't say yes because he had changed or because he suddenly cared about my desires or my pain or the gaping hole in my life where children should have been. But because he had failed. Because his escape route had been blocked. Because he needed something to make this prison of a marriage more bearable. And perhaps children would provide that. He gave me the money for the papers. The signatures. The permissions. All the bureaucratic necessities of becoming a mother through adoption. He handed it over with the same emotional investment he would give to paying a utility bill. And that was how the children entered my story. Not through love. Not through joy. But through surrender. And that was how, after years of begging for love, after years of trying to earn the right to exist in my own marriage, I finally received permission to become a mother. When the children arrived, I thought the worst was behind us. I was wrong. Subscribe to the Quiet Voice Diaries to continue the story.